The tragedy that befell the young and talented always evokes profound sadness and heartache. It seems as if life itself has been unfairly cut short at the very beginning, not allowing the full potential to be realized and dreams to be achieved. This story is not about two lovers whose feelings were stronger than death. It is a tale of those who left too soon, leaving behind only memories and unfulfilled dreams. Jamie and Peter James could never have imagined that they would have to endure the most terrible grief that can befall parents, the loss of a beloved daughter. The morning of October 26, 2023 brought shocking news. At 4:30 a.m., the principal of the prestigious St. Andrew's Cathedral School, located in the heart of Sydney, sent urgent emails to all students and their parents. The message stated that the school would be closed until the end of the week due to an emergency. Just 2 hours passed, and the worried families received another message from the school administration. The leadership assured that no student was harmed, but the news itself was extremely alarming. Particularly disconcerting was the clarification that this order did not apply to graduates who had to take exams. For those who needed psychological support during this difficult time, a 24-hour counseling center was set up in the school library. Over the next 2 days, on Thursday and Friday, the school grounds and all its buildings underwent a thorough examination by forensic experts. Attention was drawn to the gym, access to which was restricted. The adjacent shower area was subject to dismantling. What really happened within the walls of this educational institution? As it became known, around midnight on October 25, 2023, the body of a woman was found at the school. She was last seen alive at 7 in the evening, when she, being a water polo coach, entered the gym showers and never came out. Security cameras recorded that around 8 p.m., an unknown person followed her. Subsequently, this person left the school premises alone, heading for the exit. The woman's disappearance was first reported by her parents. Lilie, as the deceased was called, had not been in contact all day. At 10 o'clock in the evening, she sent a message asking to be picked up from work, but no longer answered calls. Fortunately, the police, who had already been informed about the situation, took control of the case. The grim discovery was made by the night watchman during his rounds. On the shower floor, he saw a woman lying in a pool of blood with a shattered head. After recovering from the initial shock, the man immediately called the emergency services. Later, detectives invited a close friend of the James family to identify the body. The face of the deceased was so disfigured that it was difficult to identify her. When the news of the tragedy became public, Lilie's house was filled with people. Friends, neighbors, acquaintances, everyone came to express their condolences and support the girl's relatives during this mournful time. Local residents shared the family's grief and showed their deep respect for the prematurely deceased, turning the space around the house into a true memorial of flowers and toys. But this mysterious death was not the only shock. Another tragedy occurred on the morning of October 27, just 11 miles from the site of the first crime. There, the remains of a male body were found. It was discovered by vendors working nearby on the cliffs of Diamond Bay Reserve, located in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. Upon receiving the call, the police quickly formed a rescue team. Divers, Marines, and a search and rescue helicopter joined the operation. At 3:30 p.m., the man's body was lifted to the surface and handed over to forensic experts for identification. Due to numerous injuries sustained from falling from a great height, visual identification was impossible. Fingerprints had to be used for this purpose. Experts made assumptions about the identity of the deceased, but solid confirmations were needed for final conclusions. Eventually, it was established that it was 24-year-old Paul Tyson, who was suspected of committing a crime against Lilie. Investigators faced a difficult task: to find a connection between the two fatal incidents and to find out what exactly happened between these people a few days before the tragedy. Lilie was born in May 2002 in the picturesque coastal town of Sans Souci, located in the Australian state of New South Wales. She became the first child in the loving and close-knit James family, immediately winning the hearts of all family members. Her maternal grandmother, Barbara, felt a particularly strong attachment to the girl and simply adored her granddaughter. Lilie's childhood passed in an idyllic place, on the ocean coast, where she spent a lot of time with her younger brother Max. The girl grew up surprisingly active and resilient, and her greatest passion was swimming. Lilie's father, who worked as a water polo coach at an Anglican girls' school in Hustville, fully supported his daughter's enthusiasm and encouraged her to play sports. Lilie's friends remembered her as an extremely sociable and benevolent personality. She not only achieved significant success in her studies, but was always ready to help those classmates who faced certain difficulties. These wonderful human qualities made Lilie a true favorite in her circle of friends, so she was never left alone. In high school, Lilie began to prove herself as a real star. Thanks to her outstanding achievements in studies, sports, and active participation in the school's social life, she was recognized as one of the best students. It seemed that whatever she undertook, success was guaranteed. Lilie's incredible talent lay in her ability to equally brilliantly prove herself in all areas of activity, which aroused genuine admiration from those around her. In addition to sports, Lilie showed an extraordinary interest in dramatic art. This passion led her to participate in the school's theater and dance club. Over time, the talented girl became known outside the school and received an invitation to participate in the prestigious Woodford Folk Festival. This annual event is one of the largest in Australia and attracts about 125,000 visitors, including both local residents and guests from other regions of the country and from abroad. The festival usually takes place from December 27th to January 1st and is an integral part of the New Year celebration. Its program is marked by an extraordinary variety of genres and styles, including circus acts, cabaret, comedy performances, street performances, master classes, debates, etc. Lilie decided to present at the festival a unique interpretation of a monologue from Shakespeare's Macbeth. During the performance, Lilie was able to fully demonstrate her acting skills, natural charm and appeal. Her performance was met with thunderous applause and the highest approval from the jury. As a result, the girl took an honorable second place in the theater category, which became a real triumph and a significant achievement in her creative biography. In addition to the recognition, Lilie also received a solid cash prize. 2018 brought another victory for young Miss James. She successfully passed the exam and obtained a driver's license for beginners. Lilie's athletic achievements are also worth a special mention. Following the example of her father, the girl began to professionally engage in water polo. Persistent training and natural talent allowed her to win the honorary title of swimming champion in the under-17 age category. Lilie's parents were incredibly proud of their daughter and rejoiced at each of her successes. By the senior year, Lilie had clearly defined her future and decided to focus on her sports career. That is why in 2020 she entered the University of Technology Sydney with the aim of obtaining a bachelor's degree in sports business management. A real turning point in Lilie's life was the fateful meeting that took place in 2021. Wanting to diversify her student life and gain teaching experience, she got a job as a water polo coach at St. Andrew's Cathedral School. Thanks to her young age, bright personality and sincere love for sports, Lilie quickly found common ground with the school administration, colleagues and students. The students were drawn to her, trying to meet the high standards she set. In turn, Lilie made every effort to find an individual approach to each student and reveal their unique abilities. It was during this period that she met a new cricket and hockey coach named Paul Tyson. His professionalism and attractiveness immediately attracted the attention of those around him. The ambitious young man, in addition to his main job, also taught part-time at another educational institution and was a player on the University of New South Wales hockey team. Without a doubt, Paul was extremely popular, especially among the fairer sex. However, opinions about him were divided. Some considered him proud and stubborn, while others noted his positive character traits. Initially, communication between Lilie and Paul was exclusively friendly and limited to regular greetings. But over time, their relationship began to grow into something more. Lilie's friends said that one day the young man asked her out on a date. The girl found it hard to resist his dazzling smile, and she accepted the invitation. The first date made a great impression on both of them, so they decided to continue communicating. Not suspecting the true nature of her chosen one, Lilie immersed herself in the relationship with her head, captivated by his charm and open to new feelings. It seemed that Paul was also sincerely fascinated by her. He showered the girl with compliments, gave her flowers and arranged romantic evenings. At the same time, the young couple agreed to keep their connection a secret from others, especially from the school students. This was dictated both by the requirements of school policy and Lilie's personal beliefs, as she valued the privacy of her life. Therefore, at work they behaved with maximum caution and restraint. However, despite all their efforts, rumors about their relationship began to spread throughout the school over time. At first it was just cautious whispers, but later they turned into open discussions. Having learned who exactly revealed the secret of their romance, Lilie felt bitter disappointment. It turned out that Paul broke the promise they had made. The situation was further aggravated by the derogatory manner in which he allowed himself to speak about Lilie, which caused condemnation from the young colleague. The girl felt betrayed and humiliated. Not wanting to put up with such an attitude, she firmly told Paul everything she thought about his actions and broke off the relationship. It later became known that the young man tried to regain Lilie's favor and repeatedly apologized, but the girl was adamant. The only consolation for her was the realization that the romance did not last long, and in a relatively short period of time she managed to discern Paul's true essence. Paul was born in 1999 in the Netherlands. His parents, wealthy and influential people in certain circles, made the decision to change their country of residence in 2015, when the head of the family was offered a new position in Australia. This move was fateful for the young man and greatly influenced the formation of his personality. Being the only child in the Tyson family, Paul was surrounded by excessive attention and care from his parents since childhood. Undoubtedly, such an upbringing left its mark on the boy's character. He grew up egocentric and somewhat spoiled, used to the idea of his own exclusivity. Paul knew his worth and was not ashamed to demonstrate it. Despite this, the young man achieved significant success in his studies and sports, and his impressive physique immediately caught the eye. Finding himself in a new place, Paul became a student at the prestigious St. Andrew's Cathedral School. There he joined the school cricket team and quickly established himself as a talented and promising player. His sporting achievements brought him recognition and respect from his peers. Soon Paul was appointed captain of the team, which was a testament to his leadership qualities and authority among his comrades. In addition to his sporting victories, the young man actively participated in organizing various extracurricular activities and festivals. However, it was during this period that people's attitudes towards Paul began to take on an ambiguous character. Some of the boys felt hostility towards the self-assured peer who boasted of his ability to win the heart of any girl. On the other hand, ladies found Paul surprisingly charming and sociable, willingly communicating with him. After completing his schooling in 2017, the administration of the educational institution, properly assessing the organizational abilities and sporting talent of the graduate, offered him the position of assistant coach in cricket and hockey. Paul gladly accepted this offer, and already at the beginning of 2018 he headed the corresponding sections. It is worth noting that the young mentor felt confident in his job and successfully coped with his leadership responsibilities. However, Paul unexpectedly resigned soon after and returned to the Netherlands, where his family lived. The real reasons for such a sudden decision remained unclear. Once at home, the young man did not stand still, but decided to continue his education. He successfully obtained a master's degree in sports management, which later opened up new career prospects for him. During a meeting with old friends, Paul shared that he had significantly improved his coaching skills, and this soon bore fruit. A lucrative offer came from his former employer to return to his previous job. So at the beginning of 2020, the doors of the familiar school opened again for the ambitious specialist. As soon as he set foot on Australian soil, Paul met an old friend who offered to share the rent for housing. Despite the fact that the young man had enough funds to rent an apartment on his own, he agreed to such an idea, believing that living together would be much more comfortable. Their economical choice fell on an apartment located in Kensington, an eastern suburb of Sydney. At first, harmony reigned between the friends. They willingly spent time together, visiting local bars after work. However, after a few months, their relationship began to sour, and the impulsive Paul decided that it would be better for him to live separately. Paul's parents realized that, despite his constant busyness and wide circle of friends, their son felt lonely at heart. They had no information about his romantic ties, although they assumed that Paul was not too concerned about serious relationships. In March 2020, the world was shaken by an unexpected event that affected both the lives of individual countries and the global situation as a whole. The rapid spread of coronavirus infection forced Australia to declare a state of emergency and introduce strict quarantine restrictions that lasted for a year and a half. Paul found himself alone with the challenges of the pandemic, unable to leave the country and visit relatives due to the risk of illness. The large-scale lockdown affected all spheres of life, so the young man had to cope with the difficulties that arose in his path on his own. In the summer of 2021, life gradually began to return to normal, but the consequences of prolonged isolation made themselves felt, significantly affecting interpersonal relationships. When Paul resumed his previous duties, some of those around him noticed striking changes in the behavior and character of the young coach. Paul immersed himself in sports activities and became one of the key players in the hockey team, continuing to lead an active lifestyle. He was even invited to participate in advertising videos of matches. At the same time, colleagues and acquaintances noted some traits that had not previously manifested in his character, in particular uncontrolled outbursts of anger. In addition, rumors spread through the school corridors about the excessive attention Paul paid to his female students. The young mentor was repeatedly spotted openly flirting with the girls, pointedly lingering his gaze on them for a long time, making them blush and feel awkward. Despite everything, Paul remained a significant figure in the sporting life of the educational institution. His performances played an important role in promoting the team to the finals of the Australian Hockey League. However, the breakup with Lilie was a real blow to Paul's ego. When investigators began investigating the case, the involvement of the suspect was beyond doubt. Law enforcement officers managed to quickly track down the perpetrator. The footage from the video surveillance cameras installed both inside the school premises and in the surrounding area played an important role in this. Paul, probably due to his overconfidence, carelessly got into the lens several times. In addition, law enforcement officials made official inquiries to the company that serviced Lilie and Paul's mobile communications. It was important for the investigation to determine the last known location of the suspect, so it was decided to track his movements using GPS data. Also, in the interests of the investigation, it was necessary to find the victim's phone. Investigators hoped that the messages stored in the device's memory could shed light on the circumstances and motives of the crime committed. After some time, information about the location of both devices was obtained. Moreover, by restoring the chronology of events, the investigation managed to find out that a few days before the attack, Paul bought a hammer at a hardware store. Obviously, the young man was filled with anger due to the breakup with Lilie and decided to brutally get even with her, although the girl's guilt in the situation that developed raised great doubts. The events of that fateful day unfolded as follows. In the morning of October 25, Lilie, as usual, went to the university, and later to work. At about the same time, her former admirer rented a silver Lexus and headed to the school. Since he had no scheduled classes, Paul decided not to enter the building, but lurked in the car, waiting for the right moment. When the students dispersed to their homes and the school emptied, the criminal slipped into the gym. To avoid unnecessary questions, he hid the hammer under his jacket in advance. Once in place, Paul began to watch Lilie's movements, waiting for the victim to be alone. After the training, the girl went to the shower room to refresh herself. It was at this moment, when she was most vulnerable, that the insidious stalker with a hammer in his hand broke into the room. A fierce argument broke out between the former lovers, in the heat of which Paul pounced on the defenseless Lilie and hit her on the head with all his might. As the results of the autopsy later showed, the girl's death was instantaneous. She did not even have time to realize what had happened, and therefore did not suffer from pain. Having spent about an hour by the lifeless body, the killer hastily shoved Lilie's personal belongings into her backpack and hurriedly left the building. He got behind the wheel of the rented car and sped towards Diamond Bay, where he intended to get rid of the murder weapon. There, Paul threw the bloody hammer into the nearest trash can, hoping to forever conceal the traces of his crime. However, at 8:47 p.m., the perpetrator was captured by video surveillance cameras installed nearby. This circumstance later significantly helped the investigation. The last location of Paul that investigators were able to establish was recorded at Gap Point, a picturesque cliff located on the southern coast of Sydney. This scenic spot attracts not only numerous tourists, but unfortunately is also a popular location for suicides. Around 10 o'clock in the evening, a message was sent from Lilie's phone to her father, Mark James. Probably, in this way, Paul tried to draw attention to the place where the girl's lifeless body lay. Perhaps, seized by remorse, he hoped for help or simply wanted to inform relatives about where they could find their daughter. The James' extraordinary concern was evidenced by the countless attempts to call Lilie's number. An hour later, Paul finally dared to call the emergency number, but changed his mind a moment later and hung up. It seems that a fatal decision was brewing in his head, which he finally made the next moment. Without hesitation, the man took a step into the abyss, ending his life and leaving this world forever. When the police arrived at the scene, Paul was no longer among the living. Instead, law enforcement officers found personal belongings that belonged to the former lovers. The rented car was parked nearby, which only confirmed the suspicions about the young man's death. It is quite possible that he simply could not cope with the feeling of guilt that was gnawing at him, or was afraid of the inevitability of punishment for the crime committed. Be that as it may, the urgent task of the investigators was to find the body of the missing person. On the morning of October 26, helicopters and Coast Guard boats joined the search operation. The entire perimeter of the coast was taken under close surveillance, and the territories adjacent to Diamond Bay were thoroughly surrounded. Unfortunately, the first day of searches did not bring any results. Only the next day, the waves of the surf accidentally threw Paul's body onto the rocks of a nearby reserve. After carrying out all the necessary examinations and an autopsy, it became obvious that it was he who was responsible for the murder of Lilie James. However, in view of his own death, it was impossible to bring the perpetrator to criminal responsibility, so the case had to be closed. Subsequently, Paul's remains were handed over to his parents, who decided not to transport them back to the Netherlands, but to cremate the ashes and scatter them in the sky over Sydney. The farewell to Lilie took place on November 17, 2023 within the walls of her native school located in Hustville. About 500 people gathered to pay tribute and last respects to the beloved daughter, sister, friend and mentor. At that mournful moment, grief united all those present, forcing them to forget about quarrels and misunderstandings. At the entrance to the school, Lilie's students and colleagues created an improvised memorial in her honor. Next to it lay bouquets of her favorite flowers and farewell notes, the last signs of respect and honor to her bright memory. That's all for now. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future content. Take care and goodbye.